Hey guys, oh my goodness. Once again, we have another awesome speaker here, right? An awesome guest. And her name is actually Amina. Now, she's the CEO of Brown Girl Money, a company dedicated to financial empowerment of women of color. Right now, you probably know why I had to bring her on this show, because this is huge. Now, she has helped hundreds of women build wealth through entrepreneurship and investing. Yes, that's right, ladies. She is all about building your business and learning to invest in the right places, right? So this is going to be absolutely important for you to be listening to and actually jotting down a lot of information, because she is just absolutely full of knowledge. She's also a certified business strategist and a best-selling author. Oh my goodness, Amina, I am super excited to have you here.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, like knowing what you do, right, and how you actually simplify a lot of things, because I've seen you working in person with clients at the workshop that you had in London, and I saw the way you were going around and just being really, it was so simple for people to actually learn all that knowledge and experience that you have and just completely simplify it for people. And I knew that I had to have you on here because this is what people need, right? People need to simplify information on actually how to build a business, a right business, and then investing, right? I think that's what people get stuck on so much, is knowing where to invest and how to invest. Now, before we start though, right, I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about what your journey looked like. Like, how did you build this business? How did it come about? What happened on your journey for you to be like, oh my goodness, no, people need this. I need to get out there and teach people. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so my journey started at a very toxic corporate firm a few years ago. When I graduated, I started working there. I was working as a financial consultant, like deep into the corporate world. But unfortunately, I was really, really miserable. And my coping mechanism was to spend loads of money. So
Oh,
by the time I'd been working for 3 to 4 years, I had racked up tens of thousands of pounds of debt. And I had no idea how to manage my money. It's not something I was taught whilst I was growing up. My parents were always kind of self-employed, but they had never really encouraged me down that route particularly. It was always about getting good grades and, like following the path that you're meant to follow. Um, and so for me, the turning point was really the night before my wedding. I ended up burning out so severely that I was in hospital. And
the night before your wedding, you was in hospital.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Okay.
I didn't know if I would actually make it there. I had all sorts of infections going on, but at the end of the day, they just put it down to me having really severe burnout and like really low immunity. And so thankfully, I managed to make it there on the day and everything worked out.
Wow.
But for me, that was like a massive turning point because, people had flown from across the world to come for my wedding from Pakistan, from Brazil. And I hadn't spent any time with them. I hadn't taken time off because I was scared to. And I was in a really bad financial position. I hated my job. And, that for me was like, no, this is not what my life is about. And so from that point onwards, I really went all into kind of educating myself about money, about investing, how to manage your money, how to have the right mindset around money. And I started doing quite a few different side hustles, like so all sorts of things online, like admin work and like bits and bobs, like freelance gigs, just to help pay off my debt. And basically in the space of about 2 years, I was able to clear the debt off and I was in a position to hopefully quit my job because I had enough savings to kind of cover myself for a few months. And in that process, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do for the long term. So what I decided to do was write a book. And it was all about money and investing and, how people can need to educate themselves about it. And so I published that and I published my story and it did really, really well. And I had people reaching out to me asking, can you help me further? Do you offer coaching? Do you offer further support? And so that's when I realized that there was such a need for it. And I started my Instagram page and I started offering kind of one-to-one coaching. And then that grew from there to like courses and group programs. So yeah, that's like my crazy little journey.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Like, I got to take it back a little bit, right? Like the fact that you ended up in hospital the day before your wedding, right? Like, what were you doing to cause burnout? And I love the fact that you said that you were spending money to help you cope. Like, I think a lot of people do that. But what was going on in your world to be that burnt out?
Honestly, it was mostly just working insane hours. Like there were days where I wouldn't leave the office until 3 a.m. and I had to be back at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I was traveling a lot, so I had clients outside of London, and because I'd already taken off a little bit of time to plan for the wedding, and I had some time off from my honeymoon, I was too scared to ask for time off the week of my wedding.
Oh, wow.
And because obviously, Asian weddings have like multiple parties, right?
Yes.
So we had what we call like a mendi, which is like kind of before the wedding. It's like where you dance and have music and all that. So we had that on. I remember was it a Sunday I think it was a Sunday. I think we could only do the Sunday. The Sunday night, I got home at 4 o'clock in the morning and I caught a train at 6 a.m. to Birmingham to see a client.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had hairspray in my hair, like makeup on my face. But like that's how kind of tough it was. And I think when I look back on it now, I'm like, I could have been a lot better at setting boundaries. And, I shouldn't have been so afraid of losing my job or anything just for at such an important time in my life.
Yeah.
But at the time, I just felt like I couldn't see past like, what their expectations were of us. So yeah, I think it was just an accumulation of that. I wasn't taking care of my health. I was like not eating properly, not sleeping properly. My immunity was really, really bad. I was deficient in like multiple different, iron, vitamin, all of that. And so I caught a really nasty infection. Um, and I just crashed the day before. And no one could figure out what was going on. I was just in severe pain, and passed out. And then I was taken in to A&E. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Wow. It sounds it. Now, how were you feeling on your actual wedding day though? Were you a lot better? Was that drained? Because again, like those Asian weddings, right? They take a lot out of you.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, my wedding day was really nice, and I'm very, very grateful that it all worked out. Obviously, it wasn't great with everything going on prior to it, but on the day itself, I did feel a lot better. I had so much support and people taking care of me, feeding me. In fact, I remember the day of my wedding was the first time I ate in like 4 days.
What?
Yeah, I'd been on a drip, like I wasn't able to eat. I just felt so sick that I couldn't eat.
Wow.
So the wedding food was the first time I ate in like 4 days. So yeah, so it was nice. It kind of all worked out, and we had a really good event. I think sometimes you are forced to rest. Uh,
Yes.
and although I was in the hospital and it was not where I wanted to be, I was forced to rest. And so I was pretty much knocked out like the whole day, the whole night. And so I did wake up feeling like refreshed and, ready for the day. I was dozed up on all kinds of medicines. So um,
Oh
yeah,
my
it worked
goodness.
out in the end.
Absolutely. And I can't imagine what your husband must have been, or your husband to be at that point was thinking, right? Like, because he must have seen or known that, okay, like you're rush off your feet, you're constantly working, you're doing crazy hours. Like, did he ever say, like, Amina, you need to slow down?
Do you know what it is? I was very, very good at hiding how I
Oh,
was feeling, and not I don't think anybody could ever guess that I was struggling mentally,
really?
um that I hated my job that much. Like people thought I loved my job and I was just working hard because I loved it. um and he himself is a doctor, and was working insane hours. So I don't think we even realized like how much we were both kind of just tired.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I don't. No one actually. That's a good point. No one actually said to me like, "You should probably slow down." I mean, obviously, my parents were like, "Oh, like we have guests. Like, why haven't you taken time off? Whatever." But I
Yeah.
think they were also just trying to let me do my thing, and they didn't want me to be. Because what I told them was that I was at risk of losing my job if I took
Oh
more off.
no.
And so everybody just let me do my thing, and they thought I knew what I was doing, and I was, just coping, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so I've got a question to ask there because I can imagine a lot of different people in a very similar situation where they feel like they have to keep going, they can't set boundaries because otherwise they'll lose their job and all those kinds of things. And so you mentioned that you felt like you were going to lose your job, but you didn't really know if that was the case, right? But that was the kind of that's what was going through in your mind. And so why did you feel like you had to keep up a pretense to your family and not actually tell them what was going on and not reach out for help? Because I feel like at certain situations we always need to reach out for help. But what was the reason that stopped you from doing that?
Honestly, I just think they had so much on their plate that I didn't want to be a burden. I have a special needs brother, he's quite severe on the spectrum. My parents aren't the youngest, that they've ever been. And so I, we had at the time about 30 people who had come from abroad, our
Oh,
family. Yeah.
oh
Um,
my goodness.
and like a fraction of them, I'd say a third of them were staying in our house. My dad had at the time a couple of rental properties like in the area, so he had cleared those out to accommodate the rest of the guests. Because that's just how it works in our culture. Like, if someone's coming for your wedding, you have to accommodate them. It's not like somehow they can't get a hotel. So our house was insane. We had about 7 kids under the age of 6 living in the house. We had my brother, my mum and dad, the wedding. And so I just felt like I had to keep my problems to myself, so that they had the space to deal with whatever they were dealing with. Um, I think my husband at the time had like he was doing exams, like he was wrapping stuff up for his training.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I just kept everything to myself so that everybody else could get on with what they needed to do.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And how long did that go on for before, it came to the night, the day before your wedding?
I mean, I think I was pretty much like, I think I hid the extent to which I was suffering for the entire time I was at my job for like 4.5 years.
No way.
But I think it really all kind of came to a head like in the 3 to 4 months prior to my wedding, because that's when I was put on a contract that required me to travel 3 to 4 days a week. Um, and that's also when kind of all the final bits were being done for the wedding planning. Um, and yeah, there was just a lot happening at once. And I was planning my honeymoon and trying to get time off for that. And so I think that's when it all started to really go downhill. But yeah, I've always been the type to keep things to myself until I crash. I should probably learn from that.
Okay, okay. Now that is an experience to go through, right? And like I said, there's probably a lot of people that do very similar things, right? Because you don't want to burden anybody else. You're putting everybody else first before you're even putting yourself and looking after your own well-being, right? Because you're putting your job first and making sure that everything is okay there. You're putting your family first, right? And making sure all the relatives in your house are okay, your parents, your brother, everyone else is okay. And that's why we tend to just crash and burn.
Mm.
Now, with that experience that you went through, what would you now say to someone that's going through something very similar to this day? Like, what were the lessons that you learned from that?
Um, definitely to never put my job first.
Right.
Um, so I think that was definitely the biggest mistake I made. It was definitely a toxic environment, but there were policies, procedures, and people in place to support you going through a difficult time. And I think I shouldn't have been so afraid. And I should have reached out to those people and stood up for myself. And, said that this is a difficult time. It's not only a difficult time, it's a really important time. Like, it's honestly one of the biggest regrets of my life that I had all my family in one room and I barely got to spend time with them. And some of them are no longer here today. Um, you know, some of them I haven't been able to see since. And it was such a precious time. And it was also the last few weeks of really like living with my parents for the last time as well. And I really wish I had just put myself first and taken that time out and just prioritized family time. Um, but I was so in my head and so stressed and so anxious that I just couldn't see that at the time. So I
Mm.
think my biggest lesson is probably like, you hopefully don't get married more than once. And like big life events and things like that, that's what life's all about. And you should never ever let your work take precedence over that or take priority over that, especially not when you're working for someone else.
Yeah.
And so I think I could have handled that much better. I think I could have set boundaries. I could have stood up for myself and told them how I was feeling, and they probably would have accommodated it. I don't think I would have lost my job. It may have caused some issues and some conflict, but it would have been worth it.
Right.
Um, and following that, I actually had to take like a kind of health related sabbatical for a couple of months because I crashed so badly. And they granted that really easily because they could see it. But it's like I could have avoided that if I had just
Right.
spoken
Yeah.
up earlier. So yeah, I think not prioritizing work over everything else, and also just like you said at the beginning as well, like reaching out for help sooner rather than later. It's always going to end up being better for everyone if you do that. Um, and no matter how bad your workplace is, I think there's always someone or some kind of rule or policy in place that can, help you out when you're stuck.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's all about having that conversation, right? It needs to be had, and something can always be worked out. I think that's what I've come to realize myself, right? Instead of having all these different stories and what if this and what if that, what if we just had that conversation and just worked it out and figured it out together,
Mm.
right? And I think as human beings, we love to overcomplicate things, right? It's one of the things that we have in common.
Yeah.
And so I love that. Okay, let's just have the conversation. If something isn't feeling right, then we just need to raise it and have that conversation and see how we can all work together, make it a win-win, right? I love that. All right, now you got married, right? And you and your husband live together. Now you've got a baby,
Hmm.
right? You've got a little boy. And so you've got this business that you're running. And I just want to point out the fact that you did mention earlier that you're half Pakistani and half Brazilian, right? That's where your business name came from, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's so many questions I have around this now. First of all, right, why did you decide that you wanted to work with women of color? What did you see out there that needed to be shifted?
Yeah, so this is it's a great question because it has a slightly funny story behind it. I didn't start off as Brown Girl Money.
Mm.
I had a really funny name, which I'm not so proud of, for my business when I was initially doing like just purely financial coaching. And when I published my book, it was called 30 Day Money School. And the idea was that, my book is a crash course to essentially kind of revamp your finances in 30 days. And so when I had potential coaching clients, I would do it as well over a 30-day period.
Ah,
I don't
okay.
love the idea anymore, but that's what it was at the time. What I found though is um, the people that connected with me the most and wanted to work with me the most were women, primarily, and they were also women from similar backgrounds to me. And so everyone I've worked with pretty much. And what they would all say is that they chose me over the other options that were out there because I have an understanding and appreciation of their upbringing, of their experience, like being children of immigrants, of their faith, of their culture, and how that impacts their money mindset and, you know, their perception of what they can and can't do. And so they felt that that's what really drew them to me. And so that's when it kind of clicked. And I realized that actually, you know, this is what people need from me, that that's the person that I need to be. I need to be a representation for these women who don't necessarily have someone to look up to that, you know, has gone a non-traditional career path, has had mistakes with money and turned her life around. And so that's where kind of Brown Girl Money was born. Um, and I still remember to this day, the day that I changed my name to Brown Girl Money. And then in my bio, I put the two flags of Pakistan and Brazil. And then I think my kind of the what's it called? Your niche statement or whatever you call it in your bio, it said empowering women of color with financial independence. Um, Literally overnight, my Instagram started to grow and like go
Wow.
crazy. And it was like immediately my page spoke to people in a way that it didn't before. And funnily enough, it was literally people from either like Pakistan or India or from Latin America. And like my entire client base was literally composed of those people. Even Brazilians, you know, I have a lot of Brazilian clients and they all say that like literally no one Brazilian does this.
Oh, wow.
And so I think there's a lot more kind of Asian representation now in the space, but not so much Latin. But yeah, I think there's just something to be said about the shame and taboo that is associated with the word and the topic
Mm,
money.
yeah.
And people feel more comfortable talking about it with someone who has maybe had the same sort of cultural experiences as them, because they feel like somebody that hasn't won't understand where their fears come from. So, yeah, that's kind of like how it all started.
So you already mentioned that, you kind of went in a different direction than traditionally you should have gone down, right, compared to what your culture and society says. What did your parents have to say about that?
Honestly, my parents were my biggest supporters. So whilst I was growing up, they were very big on like get the best grades, get into the best schools, the best universities. Like they were really kind of, you know, strict on that, especially my dad. Um, and you know, they wanted me to kind of be able to establish myself and like get a job and, you know, do all those things. And it needed to be like a fancy sounding company that they can tell all their family about, and all that. But
It's funny how that works, isn't it? It's not all of a sudden. It's not about us. It's about who our parents can tell and making sure it sounds good.
yeah, exactly. But I think from their perspective, like for them, that the end goal was always like entrepreneurship because they've been entrepreneurs their whole lives. Like they've done the job thing, the degree thing, and the traditional way, and then they both started their own businesses, and have been quite successful. But most importantly, it's allowed them to live a balanced life. And I think that's what they always wanted for me. And especially in their case, having, you know, a severely autistic son,
Mm.
you know, they've been able to look after him themselves, be there for them, be there for us, you know, while still being financially comfortable. So for them, they always felt like that's the route that we should all ultimately go down. And so they were really supportive, and I'm really grateful for that. I don't know if I could have done it without that. I think I would have been too afraid.
Yeah.
Um, and funnily enough, even my in-laws, who also have the same mentality around like my daughter-in-law works for X company and does X and has X clients, like that's like their favorite thing to do. I was really afraid to tell them too, because I have a lot of love and respect for them. They're like a second, set of parents to me. And I thought, oh my God, like they're going to be embarrassed of me. And like, when they can't tell their people that I work at a fancy company anymore. Um, and they were just over the moon. They were so happy. They were like, that's great for you. Like, that's what you should do. And again, it's because they also have their own business. And again, they both, did the whole traditional career path, veered into their own business. And they brought up all three of their sons as doctors, but
Oh, wow.
yeah, they were pretty insistent on that. But at the same time, have always wanted their kids to kind of have that like financial independence as well. So yeah, I think I was really lucky in that sense.
Definitely. Definitely. But I'm curious. I'm curious, Amina, like with being surrounded by entrepreneurs your entire life, right? Did you never think, wait, mom and dad, why are you telling me to get good grades and go to school and get a job? And like, why don't you just teach me how to do business?
Yeah. No, I did. um, and I think a lot of that it stems from, the immigrant experience as well. Like my parents came here, in their late 20s. Um, they came here to find a better life and they really struggled at the beginning. So I was actually born into a hotel room. So my parents didn't have a house, they couldn't afford rent or to own a home. And they were working in a hotel and they were both receptionists and they were helping with like the cleaning and the management of the hotel. And so because they did so many roles in one, the owners gave my dad a room that he could just stay in.
Mhm.
And so I was literally born into like a small double bedroom in a bed and breakfast hotel. And that's where I lived for the first year of my life. And so I think my parents just really saw that struggle, and I think they just they felt that they were giving us a better opportunity at life if we have education and a job and all of that to fall back on. And I think a part of them sort of thinks that they got lucky and, they fell into this and it doesn't happen for everybody. Um, and it's also, you know, um, the fact that although they struggled and, they kind of came out of it and they have a successful business, I think part of them still thinks that if that hadn't worked out, we still had our education to fall back on.
Mm.
Because my mum was, a teacher. She did a master's and a PhD. She was like a head teacher in Brazil, so she was a headmaster of a school.
Okay.
Um, and so I think she always felt that she had that to fall back on. My dad was a pilot. He always felt like he had, that to fall back on. Um, so I think that's where it came from for them. I think it was partly fear that they're not giving us, the best chance at life and feeling like maybe they just fell into something and we might not. Um, but also just it's always nice to have that security that you've got something to fall back on, which I think was probably more the case back then than it is now. I think
Okay.
now it's like increasingly you see very, very successful people who haven't even done their A levels, let alone gone to university. There's all kinds of routes, apprenticeships, so many things now that, you can do without necessarily having that, the grades to fall back on. Um, so I still appreciate what they did and I appreciate that they pushed me because I think everything leads to another thing. I don't think I would have ever been interested in the financial world or felt qualified to talk about it if I hadn't worked in it for a few years.
Right.
And obviously my job needed to push me out of my comfort zone. If I hadn't gone to work for such a kind of like, a difficult role in like a big company, I probably wouldn't have had that experience. I probably would have gotten like very comfortable. Um, but that experience pushed me to leave and do the thing that I really want to do. So
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, yeah, everything that you go through is teaching us a lesson. We don't see it at the time, and we're kind of like, why the hell is this happening to us right now? Like, what did I do that was so wrong, right? And it's not until later on down the line we realize, Ah, okay. It's because it makes things now easier because I learned whatever lessons it was that you had to learn, right? And yeah, I think we always have to go through certain things because without sounding too woo woo, we're destined for something bigger,
Yeah.
right? Now, you are a mum. You're a mum, you're a husband, you're a daughter. You wear all the hats in your business as well as in your personal life, right? And so now you've got this business. How do you find balance, right? Because we talked about balance with your job and family before. How are you finding balance with being a mum, being a wife, being a daughter, and still being there for everybody else in your family? How does that work?
Um, it's difficult. I'll be entirely honest. Like, I think I have sort of got it worked out now, but it's taken me like a long time. And my son's just turning 2 this weekend. And I started kind of getting back into work when he was like maybe 10 months old.
Okay.
Um, and so I've had over a year of trying to figure it all out. And I think the hardest part is like, I feel like I have to be everything to everyone. Um, and I don't know if that's just like the way we are brought up in our culture and like this kind of people pleasing mentality. Um, but I never feel like I'm doing enough for my son or my parents or my husband or even my in-laws. And then I feel bad that I'm letting down my friends. So it's a bit of a juggling act. And I think for me, the biggest challenge is like not being able to have a solid routine. That's the biggest thing. Like I am someone that really thrives on routine.
Yes.
And I've really tried to implement it. But when you have so many conflicting responsibilities, it's very difficult to do that. Um, and especially when there's all these kind of like unspoken expectations as well, within families. And I find that really difficult. I find it hard to have a routine because I put my son into a routine in terms of sleep, naps, food and all of that. But then every couple of weeks, he either gets sick or he goes through a sleep regression or he starts teething and it throws off the routine completely. Like now, for the last week, he's trying so hard to drop his nap in the day. Like he will just not sleep all day.
Wow.
And he's too young to be dropping the nap, and I'm not ready for that yet. But he's trying really hard, and I don't know if he's just too excited because we have family and friends around all the time, and I think he can feel that his routine is thrown off, and so he's trying to change things, and it's turning my day upside down, basically. When he's meant to be asleep, he's not asleep. And then it brings everything back earlier because he then wants to go to bed earlier. So that happens like every so often, and then when my uncle passed and we went to my mum's and we stayed with my mum for a week, like his routine was off that week. Like we had guests, we had all sorts. And so when his routine goes off, then my whole day gets thrown and the blocks I have assigned for myself to do work end up just fizzling into, so I find that really difficult. And then just ad hoc like family responsibilities crop up. Like now that we have our family from abroad when my aunt is really sick and my mum is also helping out with her in addition to my brother. So sometimes, I'm needed or sometimes when I'm supposed to have childcare, I don't have childcare. And so it just throws everything off. And I think when you live in a community and a culture that's so like interconnected and everybody it's a little bit codependent. It can sort of be challenging. And there are parts of it that I really, really love that I wouldn't change for the world. But it definitely makes it difficult to give structure to your day. And I think people also underestimate how much you need that as a business owner because they kind of just think, well, you're just running your own business.
Yeah.
And that's something that, despite being business owners themselves, because they're kind of semi-retired now, my parents and my in-laws don't really understand. And it's just like they'll just throw random things at the day, or should we just do this? And it's like, well, no, I had a whole day planned. But you can just move it. You can just do,
Yeah.
just like things like calling me in the middle of the day. It's like you wouldn't do that if I was in an office at
Yes.
work, right?
My good. I get this as well, right? Because we're at home working, right? It's almost like, oh yeah, shall we do the gardening, right? Like my grandmother was almost like, oh, let's do some cementing,
Oh my
like
God.
concrete. Like I was like, wait, no, like you want to do the concrete the entire garden? I'm like, you know how long that takes. Like that is hard labor. That can take weeks. Like I'm at home working. I'm not there to do construction. And so it does kind of, it's almost like, yeah, just because you're at home, they can do all these different things, right? When, no, you're at home working on your business.
And I really wish I had it in me. You know how you were saying earlier that you are doing the whole miracle morning like routine? Like I wish I had it in me to do that because it's so peaceful before everyone else has woken up
That's
to
right.
do that. But my problem is that because my son's sleep is so erratic,
Mm,
if I don't get the bare minimum sleep I need, then my day is ruined.
yeah.
And as much as I would love to wake up at a certain time, sometimes he won't sleep till like 12. He just decides I'm going to be up till midnight, or he'll have a bad night, or he'll go to bed really early and he'll be up early. And then I feel like I can't keep, because with something like that, you have to be quite consistent for a certain period of time before it becomes normal to you.
Right.
You're waking up at 4:30 in the morning, right? So every time I try to get consistent, it gets broken and then I can't. So yeah.
You know what? It's funny because I remember this conversation we had. I think it was after the sales and strategy day that we had in London, right? And we all went out to dinner,
Yeah.
right? And we were having this conversation, and you were telling me that your husband was at home looking after your little one,
Mm.
right? And all sorts was going on at home while we were eating dinner. And you were like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what my husband fed him, but apparently he's running around in circles.
Yeah, he was.
Nothing but a nappy just running around in circles. Right? And your husband was like, no, I've not fed him anything. Like it's all normal. And you're like, no, 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 there's something not quite right here. So I'm now curious. What did he feed him?
What he gave him was a bit of squash. Um, and squash it's like sugar-free squash, right? But it makes him really hyper. We've noticed a pattern. And so the other day I Googled it because I was like, okay, this technically doesn't have sugar in it. So like, why is it making him so hyperactive? And it turns out that these sugar-free squashes have this particular food coloring in them that is known to cause hyperactivity in children.
No way.
Yeah, and so that's why it's like not recommended for kids. Like you're probably better off giving them like a normal juice that has sugar in it than that.
Wow.
Because if he has like normal like kids apple juice or something, he doesn't act like that. But the squash, which is like this much squash and then this much water,
Yeah.
he drinks that and he's like flying off the sofas. Like,
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. So
yeah.
what happened when you got home? Did you like, was the house in a mess and you had to calm him down, calm your husband down? Like what happened there?
Yeah, I had to calm him down. So I just kind of took him in the room, dark room, just gave him a little body massage.
Oh my
Calm
goodness.
his nerves. But yeah, he at the end of the day, when something like that happens, he's just gonna sleep when he wants to sleep. Like there's not much you can do. We just gotta wait it out. And so yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit more about your business and how you help him, kind of get your clients to the other side, right? Of struggling and having financial issues, and what are kind of the common things or the common mistakes that you see clients do again and again and again.
So common mistakes, I would say probably need to think about this one actually. I think one of the biggest mistakes I find is with women who want to, start a business to have more freedom in their lives, to be able to quit their jobs or at least reduce their hours. thinking that everything has to be perfect before they can start. Like,
Yes.
that's probably like one of the biggest issues. Like, I need to have a perfect website, perfect branding, perfect logo, perfect everything before I can even start. When a website in reality is probably the least important thing
Right.
to
Yeah.
actually start making, money online. I mean, honestly, I didn't have a website until like 3 years into my business. And so it's helping them overcome that belief that everything has to be perfect and just getting them to just take action. Because the fastest way to learn is to make mistakes. And like,
Yeah.
you kind of just like, if you see the journey of my business, like I kept pivoting and changing and, you know, um, tailoring things based on the way my business was being received and what people needed and wanted. Because you can make something so perfect and then realize that nobody actually wants it. And so it's much, much better to just go start something, go with what you think is right, go with what you feel, and then amend it later.
Mhm.
Um, and just learn by taking action. Like, that's the best way. Like, the best way to learn is through taking action, not by reading more, learning more, putting more colors and fonts into your like.
Wait, yeah, are you saying things don't need to look pretty before you start selling?
Definitely not. I mean, if you look at my page before I started, when I started, it was awful. Like, it was so bad. But people connected with what I had to say and they connected with me as a person. And obviously, this varies from business to business. Like, there'll be some businesses that maybe it does need to look pretty. Like, I don't know if you're literally selling like you design or graphic design services. Like, if you
Right.
don't have a logo yourself, it's not gonna
Or,
look very good, is it?
or even if you are a website designer,
Yeah,
maybe you need
exactly.
to have a website,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so obviously there are exceptions to the
Yeah.
rule, but my point is just not needing everything to be perfect before you
Yeah.
start.
I love it. I love it. Now, a little birdie tells me that you have a free gift for everybody.
I do, yes. So I have something called my free money mastery toolkit. And it's a toolkit that contains 4 different really helpful tools, whether you are looking to grow your money, better manage your money, or start a business. So it contains my beginner's investing guide. It contains a budgeting spreadsheet that I've created. And it contains a guide on the top 20 side hustles that you can start today that will make you at least £500 a month. So that is what's in there. And yeah, you can find the link in the show notes. Am I supposed to say that? Am I not supposed to say that?
It's like it will be in the show notes. You're absolutely right, right? It's going to be there. So, guys, make sure you go ahead and download that. Go and get those tips and tricks because it's going to push you to the next level in your business. And make sure you reach out to Amina, right? Find her on social media, connect with her. If you want to have a conversation, like seriously, stalk her out on social media, right? Find her, tell her you want to book a call, right? And I'm sure she'll be able to get on a call with you and help you. And one of the good things she's really good at is identifying the gaps because we don't always see it in our businesses, right? But she's really good at identifying the gaps. So I urge you to not only get her freebie to help you, but also have a conversation with her. Amina, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really lovely talking to you.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.